Andy, could you please get us started by introducing yourself?
Hi, my name's Andy Schofield. I'm the Director of Environment Platform Wales. Formerly, I've worked for the Natural Resources Wales, and I worked there for over 20 years, and their predecessor organisations, which included Environment Agency Wales and the National Rivers Authority, which is a bit of a giveaway to my age, if anything.
So, in your experience and in your role as someone who connects researchers with policymakers, what do you think are some realistic objectives for researchers when they aim to develop policy impact?
I think the first tactic I would adopt, you've got to identify who you need to be talking to. What is their interest? Why would they want to hear about your piece of research? And then, try and make contact with them. So it might be that the right people to approach and talk to are actually the researchers that work on behalf of the ministers or the civil servants within the Welsh Government itself. And, when you're approaching them and trying to provide your research to somebody who you think it's going to be beneficial to, are they going to be available at that point in time? And I think it's sometimes recognised you might get some pushback because the timing isn't quite right. So that's just something else. I think it's understanding, who you need to talk to, what their availability is, and appreciate that they are going to be pulled in different directions as well.
So, in your opinion or in your experience, are there any risks or barriers involved in engaging with policy that researchers should be aware of?
So I think the time and certainly resources and resource availability in terms of staff time for the policymakers to engage with the researchers. I think it's being aware of changing priorities. Don't wait until you've actually finished undertaking your research before contacting somebody. The earlier you do that, the better in many respects, because you can, you might be able to take on board some of the policymakers' requirements before you've gone too far down the line with your research. So be just pretty prepared for sort of the changing priorities of the policymakers as well, and recognise the fact that sometimes it can take a long time for a piece of research to then manifest itself in, for example, a new piece of legislation. I think there's an element of being patient here as well, in terms of waiting for people to come back to you. And if your research is submitted and used, it might take time for it to have the impact you wish it to have.
Are there any specific tips that you can give regarding effective communication strategies that researchers can use to better engage or to start engaging with policymakers?
I think keep an eye out for those opportunities when the policymakers are actually requesting evidence. So they might be they might be items in the press. They could be just looking at the Welsh Government website for when consultations, etc., are being launched, and tap into those where you can. Be prepared to collaborate with others as well, because it might be that you are a relatively new researcher in Wales, for example, and in order to make contact with relevant people in Welsh Government, if you tie up with their more experienced research that's been around and working in Wales for a lot longer, they might have the contacts that you're seeking. I think other small things, a lot of people nowadays are using things like LinkedIn. So why not use that to promote the research that you're undertaking?